Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for tuning in this week tuning in this week. That's a thing. Thank you for tuning in this week to another episode of the R Cars podcast. Joining me here today, we have the whole kit and caboodle here who, and by their own statement, they're not feeling spicy today, which is why they don't want to do the intro, which is why I keep doing the intro. So, meet my unspicy co-hosts, Mr. Brian Evans over there to the
Yes.
side, because they'll see me. They see me waving my hands around, so I can point at pictures. Say hi, Brian.
Hola.
And then down below, we've got Mr. Hunter K. Reeve. Okay, I said that horribly.
Hello.
Hunter K. Reeve. Say hello. You said hello.
You also called it the R Cards podcast.
Did I seriously call it? God damn it. Thank you for tuning into the call.
Restart.
No, we're keeping it. We're rolling it. We're doing it live. So, anywho, by the way, we used to be the R Cars podcast. So, if you were an original listener there, and you for some reason joined in on episode 3 instead of listening to episode 1 or 2, this is the Column Shifters podcast, which is our actual current name. And by the way, rest in peace. rcars.co has officially been shut off. Now that URL just relinks to the new website, the Column Shifters. So officially, nothing we have is branded rcars.co anymore as of today. Or not as of today. This was actually as of like a week ago now. So, yeah, that's what we got there. So, because you guys made me do the intro, first and foremost, I'm going to ask you, how are you guys doing today? You been holding up all right? You been having fun?
Super duper.
Went out to eat for the first time since the Corona times. Nice.
Ooh, where'd you go out to eat?
Pepe's Authentic Mexican.
Pepe's Authentic Mexican. I like it.
Had me a nice quesadilla.
What kind of quesadilla?
Delicious.
Was it just cheese, or did you get a bunch of stuff inside of it?
Grilled chicken.
Grilled chicken.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple, keep it clean. How about you, Hunter? Been having fun up there in Canucka Land?
Every day.
All day, every day?
Every day.
Enjoying all
All
that
day,
free
every
healthcare?
day. Hell yeah, brother.
And all that low corona rates?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Yeah. No, you guys are doing
Yep.
a lot better than us. Like, I think Cody right now, his place was clean, and then some doctor decided to be just a psycho douchebag. Is douchebag is that a sensory word?
I don't think so, because
Yeah, I
it's
don't
an
think-
actual term for what something is. It's not-
Yeah. He was being a clinical douchebag. And basically, like, he traveled, he picked up the corona, he lied to everyone and said that he didn't go anywhere, and then he treated like 500 people and got like 6 people sick. So now where he lives has corona all over again. And
Wonderful.
but yeah, so anywho, we're gonna get off it. Well, obviously, everything comes back to corona. Like, you can't have a conversation. Like, has anyone else kind of felt / noticed that? Is it's like every conversation has to have corona at the beginning, the middle, or the end somewhere. Every conversation.
At least we got it out of the way.
Yeah, we got it. Well, we're gonna have more later, so that's gonna be more of it. But like, genuinely, have any of you managed to have a conversation, like, in the past couple of weeks that didn't just touch on corona in some way, shape, or form?
Nope.
Yeah,
I did.
Did you? What was it
Yeah.
about?
It
Prove
was
it.
just about work.
Just about work?
Yeah.
I'm impressed because my work talks about corona every single day.
Well, you asked
Well,
that.
I know my wife avoids it because her work talks about it every day, but that's because she works in the medical field, so...
Yep. Well, getting on to topics that aren't. Let's see. I will take this one, if only just because I enjoy bashing on it. So, it was either last week or the week. No, it was last week. Last week we actually finally got to see the new BMW 4 Series, which is obviously a big old deal / hubbub because it was. Well, let's just say it was met with mixed opinions. Now, I'm gonna actually go out on a limb and actually say that I like certain aspects of it. Like, if it wasn't for the gigantic pig snout kidney beans. I actually like the sides of the bumper and like the overall styling of the new M4, or not M4, of the new 4 Series, because we haven't gotten the M4 yet. Like, the styling is actually pretty fantastic, other than the grill, which everyone thought was stupid, and everyone still thinks is stupid, and I don't think anyone's...
much.
Like, it's a stone's throw away from last facelift Camaro.
What?
I think the last gen Camaro, I think the Camaro refresh was better. I don't say it's just a Camaro fanboy because it was hideous.
Like, I
bought my Camaro the year before they went to shit. There was no way I would have bought in 2019.
Well, you know what? The worst thing is...
What BMW did was worse.
The 2019 has actually grown on me a little bit. I don't hate it as much now.
It looks better in person.
Yeah, in person it does not look like booty hole.
It's the lighting.
Yeah.
The picture lighting does not do the grill justice. I will say that.
Well,
but the 2020 refresh looks so much better.
Yeah, that being said. But this one is not going to look good no matter how you look at it, because literally, like, a solid 30% of the real estate of the bumper is that grill light. I mean, we're talking... The thing that also baffles me is the fact that, like, this thing is going to look like total dookie with an American license plate on it. Like, our big, tall license plate right there in the middle of those...
Even with Euro license plates, it looks awful.
Well, but at least theirs is, like, narrow, so it doesn't quite shout, look at me the same way. Like, I straight up would refuse to run a front plate on that car if I got a new 4 Series. Like, because it looks bad enough, but then the license plate placement is just so out there and poorly thought out. Like, which I guess you could make the argument maybe that was their intention, is that... Like, there are quite a few cars that, the designers have said, we designed it with a front plate not in mind, because basically we figured either you care enough that you're not going to care that it looks ugly, or you weren't going to run a front plate regardless of the car.
I don't know why. I don't know why they did this.
And the other thing
they're just taking ideas out of a hat and just running with them. I think that's BMW now.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like a lot of people have tossed out the theory that it's because they wanted the car to appeal more to like the Middle Eastern-y people, or to China. Yeah, and to China, because they like the gaudier look, I guess, apparently.
But definitely say that for a lot of luxury brands these days, because they're just straight fucking gaudy.
Dude, just everyone is opening their mouths. Like, that's what's going on. Everybody, like, Lexus started it with the Predator mouths, then Infiniti started doing it a little bit, and it's an interesting style thing that we'll see how it goes, but it really so far has only been the luxury cars that are doing it, because like all the little fun sporty things, those things are still staying small, just the regular proportions.
The Camaro.
Well, the Camaro does its own thing, and I mean you could say the Challenger isn't exactly new though. It's the same. It's been a lot of the same stuff since 2008. Is that, like, the chassis hasn't seen a major update since then?
Which one?
The Challenger.
2015 was a...
Well, 2015 was still, like, it was a facelift / upgrade, but the chassis didn't change it.
They updated the chassis.
Did they update the...
It was a whole different chassis code.
Okay, so it's not the old
LA
based off
LY
of Mercedes whatever chassis?
It, depending on what you read, depends on how many parts it shares. But Dodge claims it doesn't really share any parts with it left, and even initially the parts that were shared were overstated. They changed up pretty much all of like the chassis to begin with. It was just like some silly stuff that stayed the same, like seat frames and shit. So it's always been overstated how much it was actually just a 90s E-Class or S-Class or whatever.
Yeah.
The dumb commenters are saying that day of the week.
Well, it's like, because the worst thing is like the way that media portrays things and the way dumb people portray things is it's like as soon as they hear that anything is based off of something, based equals is.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
like, it's one thing to like take something and go, okay, this basic design is structurally rigid. Let's build something around that. Like it's its own thing. It's just that there are similar underpinnings. Somebody who understands engineering could look at the first gen challenge or the first gen new Challenger and a C class or whatever, and then go, huh, look at these little similarities here and there. It's almost like they were kind of loosely around each other. Like, the same way you can look at the same way that anybody who's worked on cars for long enough, eventually you can work on just about any car, because there are things that are similar across the board. Like the McPherson strut, once you know how one car with McPherson struts works, you know how all of them work, etc., etc. Like, it's obviously different with chassis engineering and it's more specific, but it's the similar principle of that. Yes, they are based off the same thing. That doesn't mean that they're direct bolt-ons or identical in any way. So
people have gone too far with how much is still related, especially at this point. Initially, there might have been some, but at this point, it's mostly been removed and phased out for Dodge parts. But because even from 2008 to 2014, 2015, a lot of the Challenger body panels, I believe, don't even cross over. So
yeah, I would not doubt that. So I guess back to the kind of the main plot of things, though. For those of you guys who've seen it and hate it, don't worry. It's apparently just going to be a 4 Series thing. Like, basically, they spouted on and on about the fact that this is their attempt at starting to differentiate the cars in their lineup. And you know what? To some extent, I actually kind of respect that. Like, I think it's a terrible design, but I do actually kind of like the idea of them starting to, like... Because I've accused BMW of this for years, much to the chagrin of people who like BMW. I still stand by the fact that since, like, the late 80s, BMW just takes the same car and then goes, whoop, it's a crossover. Whoop, it's a bigger sedan. Whoop, it's a sports car. Like, that has always been my stance on how they design cars, is they just come up with a basic silhouette, and then they raise the roof to make it a bigger car, and they widen things and shorten things to make everything else. And it's, it makes for a cohesive design language, and in a lot of ways, when you look at it from a marketing standpoint, it means that people just assume, like, they hear one BMW is crazy fast, or they see a BMW crazy fast, they see the car that's a quarter of the price and it looks the same, and they assume it's the same. So there's that pro, but it was one thing I've always kind of not really liked. So the fact that they are apparently trying to make that attempt, by uglifying one of their cars, is like, hey, at least now, next time I see one with those big old stupid, like, they're not even kidney beans anymore. What do we even want to call those? Like,
beaver teeth,
elk teeth,
chest vents, a giant pepperoni, whatever. I don't even know. But yeah, let's go with beaver teeth. When I see a beaver teeth BMW, beaver teeth BMW, I'll know it's a 4 Series. Boom. So, if they kind of continue with that, who knows? Maybe the M3 and the 3 Series will get something funky going for them. But it will be kind of cool if they actually manage to accomplish this, because especially, like, I care about their cars. I don't care about their crossovers. I genuinely, if I was more than 50 feet away, I would not be able to tell you the difference between an X3, an X4, or an X5. Like, the only difference between them is size. Like, that's it. Their overall design is the same. The X1 you can tell, because that's the one that's more like a sedan that's been lifted.
Front-wheel drive. No,
yeah.
It's a mini.
But
terrible car.
But again, it's just like, so we'll see if they continue to actually do this throughout the rest of their lineup. I'm kind of interested as to why they chose to, because isn't the 3 Series more of their bread and butter? Like, because it's their practical 4-seater. Yeah. So I'm surprised that we didn't see this happen to the 3 Series, like that they debuted.
Well, they don't want to be as controversial in the 3 Series, because that's
You know what?
More than
That's
Rainmaker.
fair. I can see how from a marketing standpoint they threw it out there and they're like, all right, let's see what people think of it. And then if people hate it, then they just go, don't worry. The rest of them aren't going to look like that. That's just the 4. Don't worry. So I like that idea. I'm gonna go with that. I'm gonna hold on to that and pretend that it's true. So, but yeah. So, like I said,
Let's move on to something less ugly.
yeah. Oh, and the other thing, the 4 Series makes like 328 horsepower if you get it in the fanciest trim with the inline 6 that makes power instead of the inline 4, and also the whole thing weighs like 4,000 pounds. So it's like if you get it with if you get it fully loaded up with like all-wheel drive and a bunch of other stuff, like it'll tilt the scales at 4,000 pounds. So you've got a Challenger that makes 100 less horsepower. Woot woot. But I mean, it's a BMW, and BMW does kind of have their like rowdy handling characteristics. So Brian, I'm gonna send this one to you. Go for it, buddy. Be free.
The good news with the C8. Well, everyone. First of all, I don't know if y'all talked about it last week, but I saw a bunch of articles when Corona started and production was suspended and shut down for the Corvette again. Of, oh my God, there's only going to be so few 2020 Corvettes now, and they're going to be such a hot commodity down the road, like feature classic already because it's low production number. Well, fucking dumb to begin with. There's nothing special about it, but because it was already, there's already several thousand of them. They're not nothing special, but they're making more of them anyway. Now that the factories are opening back up, so what do you freaking do all day? But the pricing for the C8 Coupe, the base price will stay under $60,000. From a lot of people are saying, and I tend to agree, they're doing it pretty much to try and keep the pricing the same, to kind of try and ease the people that had ordered one this year that got canceled. That way it's fair to them. Like, it's not their fault that the car they ordered and were supposed to get this year at the current price got canceled. So they're honoring kind of that price next year is what it seems like. And then, so plant should be possibly even working through their summer break. And then they're going to move to the 2021 model year a little later than normal just to try and boost the 2020 numbers.
Which is actually, honestly, it's really good to hear, especially, like, I wonder what kind of loss they're seeing because they're making this decision. Like, I wonder if it was significant or kind of minor, but nonetheless, like, I do like the fact that they're at least kind of doing justice, because nothing kind of salts my biscuits more than when companies pass hardship down to, like, their customers.
Yeah.
Like, there's some things, like, obviously it's business. If price of oil goes up, price of gas has got to go up. It's just sort of the way it works. But, like, especially in a situation like this, it's nice to see that they're kind of keep... Because the other thing, too, is that was the big headline for the car, is it's like, under $60,000! No one is going to own a Corvette under $60,000.
Yeah.
If you have an order or own a C8 that is under $60,000... I would love to meet you, and I would love to meet the car because...
pretty much with destination, it's over 60.
Yeah, well, obviously...
It's the base MSRP is.
Yeah. So, but so, I'm talking base price. Like, if you exclude all the extra random BS, like, if your Corvette is base price, hit me up, because I would love to kind of hear about it. And if you're in the St. Louis area, I would love to actually see it, because I know that every other C8 that I'm ever going to get my hands on is already going to be tarted up with a Z51 package or whatever LT package and all sorts of other stuff. Like, I am not going to be able to find a C8 in the St. Louis area that isn't tarted up a little bit. Because I actually really am kind of curious on... Like, that's one thing I've always been curious about with a lot of cars is I've never gotten a chance to really properly compare, like, the base booty version to, like, a well optioned up one, just to see what kind of a difference it makes in feel and look, because, like I said, most of the cars I run into are mid-optioned or above, because nobody buys base models. Or I run into cars that just don't have trims, like this guy. There's no luxury S2000. There's one trim,
There was the
convertible.
Club Racer.
There is the Club Racer, which is different, but at the same time, it wasn't. That doesn't mean that this one's the luxury one. And also, CRs are hard to find.
Rip.
Still partially on my bucket list. Like, if future plans work out, like if I win the lottery or I just get really, really lucky, I still would love to make my future shop specialize in S2000s, and I would love to have a CR as my keep it clean, like actually care about the condition of like it visibly car. And then, I'll still drive the hell out of it. I just mean that that's the one car that I won't ruin, because this car, obviously, to a lot of people it's ruined, to a lot of other people it's awesome, but long story short is it's not what it used to be.
Totally ruined.
Totally ruined.
It's not there. It's not.
And I still think that the thing that is gonna help put my name on the map is, I know at some point I'm gonna buy an S2000 that's in rough shape, and I want to turn one into a stage rally car. Like, it's not gonna be great. It's not a great choice for it, but I think that that's gonna be something that'll make people go like, "What the fuck?" So yeah, I didn't say it out loud. I'm a good boy. I'm self-censoring myself today.
It's only in like the first 10 minutes, I think, tops.
All I know is,
I think for YouTube, yeah.
I just tried because we are on you. Well, we are on you. I haven't. Okay, so it's still private because I actually needed to ask you guys about some stuff before I posted it, and I forgot to because my life got crazy. But it is uploaded to YouTube. Like, the last episode is up and ready to be published. So at some point I'll get that up. But that being said, I'm trying to keep it clean. You guys already do a better job of it than I do, because I got a dirty mouth. You suck, bleep.
I've just really learned to control it.
Well, dude, you know what the worst thing is there was a point in time where I was like such a stick up my butthole goody little two shoes. I like self-censored myself from like middle school all the way up until like 2015 or 2016. Like, my young adult working life, I self-censored myself. And then, like, as I started to kind of like discover myself and get more comfortable with a lot of stuff, and then hit a point where I was like, you know what, screw corporate America sucks, I want to do my own thing. I started to slip, and now it's like I'll freaking be just dropping F-bombs left and right, and then I'll turn around and it's like, oh, there's 8 kids behind me. That was fantastic. Good job, Juan. Good job.
Yeah.
So
I'm not like having to do anything like official. I swear up, but when I'm just an official, I'm become very good at biting my tongue.
Yeah, and I've got, like, the good thing is it's a lot of back half. Like I said, the first episode there was like 6 bleeps in it. Second episode there was 1. Yeah, there's 1 bleep in the second episode. So today, thanks to Hunter, there's going to be a bleep that's not even mine, but I've been a good boy today. So anywho, long story short is that I would like to build a stage rally S2000 as just a way to be like, look at all the S2000s I can build. Time attack, clean thing, whatever. Because it would also be a really fun fabrication project, because you run into a lot of the same issues that you do with any double wishbone car. Double wishbone cars they take work to get travel, because they're flat up limited by the lever arm action of their bushings. Versus, like, McPherson strut, basically, as long as you drop the subframe, you can make your suspension as long as you want. It just goes all together. So, like, my WRX, as long as I drop the subframe, I could make it, I could lift it as much as I wanted, because then you could just move the knuckles down and do a bunch of other stuff. Well, there are limitations still with that. But it'd be a fun fabrication project to just completely butcher a subframe and turn it into a cool off-roady subframe with long travel, and then come up with something, because it'd just be silliness. So anywho, back to the original plot, though. God, we got all the way there from base model Corvettes. Good job, Tangent.
Yeah, good job, guys.
Yeah.
Great work.
But yeah, so anywho, I do think, the original point I was making was GM really wants to keep that title of under $60,000 because it's what makes people at least want to put their foot in the door, because after that you can nickel and dime people up by like 10 grand and some people will still cave and pay for it, and then they go, oh gosh, what did I do? Hell, I'm probably going to do that at some point. If money is ever properly stable for me, like, I will probably up myself, because heck, I think when I priced out Cayman S's back when I was on my Porsche kick, the Cayman S starts at $55,000, $5,000 more than the base Cayman, and I got mine to $76,000, and I didn't even go all out. That was just like my choice, leaving a bunch of stuff out.
You're at 10 grand just on basic options that you're gonna want just to have a desirable car.
Yeah, and the one thing, dude, the thing that I hate about the new Challenge, like, I know that the new Challenger trims new Challenger options actually make a lot more sense, but I do hate the fact that now it just goes Scat Pack Hellcat, because like I'm gonna nickel and dime myself up so hard if I ever actually do just like I still am very like I think that there's like a 40% chance that my next car daily driver will be a Charger Scat Pack or SIT Charger, whichever year I end up getting, yada yada yada, because it's like the antithesis of both of my cars in every way, and in all the good ways and in all the bad ways, and that's something I really want to live with for a while. Because every other car is still like the Mustang and Camaro are stupid good handlers, so they've kind of left the muscle car world and stepped into the sports car world, really, the high performance sports car world. And then like all the other, like those are your V80 boys right there, like your American V8s. It's Camaro, Mustang, Challenger, Charger. Am I forgetting anyone? I'm not forgetting any other big American V8 cars, am I?
There's just 3 left.
What are the 3 left that are American? What am I forgetting?
Ford F-150. Dodge
That's not a car. That's a truck.
Technically there's 4, but there's really 3.
Yeah, because Charger and Challenger, basically, yeah. But yeah, so it's like
CTSV, CT6V.
Oh yeah, because okay, that to be fair, that is actually a valid answer. I just it's a very expensive answer.
The CTSV is.
I'm joking.
The CT6V is on a bespoke platform that GM ruined by never putting a crossover on it. Like, all they had to do was build a crossover, put the XT6 on the Omega platform, put the XT5 on the Alpha 2 platform, or the stretched Alpha platform that the CTS is on, and then put the XT4 on the Alpha platform that the ATS is on. Boom. Problem solved. I just made Cadillac's lineup better. In 2 seconds, it would mirror BMW's. Everything would be fine. I wouldn't be upset right now. Goodness. God. Cadillac is... Nope, we're not going down that road. I'm done. I'm biting my tongue.
So actually, that kind of works as a sub-transition. Hunter, you want to talk about the next topic? Look at that.
I sure don't.
All right, then it is on me. I'm going to go ahead and bring this up. So, the Ford Mach 1 is officially a thing. I'm going to go ahead and interrupt myself and hard tangent immediately away. Not immediately away, but I'm going to take that first branch of the road away from this topic and just bring up the fact that I am so glad that they didn't ruin that name with what is now the Mach E. I'm so glad, because like this was back in friggin' I think it was 2016 was the year that we went to the Detroit Auto Show, and that was when they first teased / like talked about / hinted that there was going to be an electric Mustang or an electric something. No, it was like it was either the following year. God, my timeline's messed up. At one point in time, they were like, we're going to make an electric crossover, and we're going to call it the Mach 1. And that was like the teased thing. And I think they decided not to because of the backlash on that, because it was like, Well, that's just a straight insult. Although they did kind of go the opposite way, so it's kind of like one of those things where they're like, you can't call it a Mach 1, it's not a Mach 1, that's for Mustangs. And they went, okay, well then we're going to call it the Mustang Mach-E. And then people go, wait, no, not that way. But nonetheless, I am glad that the Mach 1 moniker is sticking with the Mustang and that it's coming back. That being said, like right now, it seems like on paper, this car is going to muscle in on where the Bullet sits, because the Bullet was always supposed to be a temporary thing. So the Mach 1 will, and who knows, maybe the Mach, because was the Mach 1 a temporary thing in the past too? Like, was it like a special, was it an ongoing trim, or was it like we're going to make X number of these and then we'll never make them again? Psych, we'll make more in 20 years kind of deal.
Matt, I get why Ford does it. I mean, GM does it too. They bring trims in and out all the time. I just wish that I'll keep shit consistent. Like, I guess everyone does it for the quote-unquote special trims. But it just gets frustrating trying to keep up, especially looking at the used market. Like, wait, what did this have? What was stock? What options did it come with? Like, just sell the shit. Just keep it consistent.
Well, and especially when they're
just like
trickle.
Just like appearance packages, and keep all the performance stuff in the regular packages. That's all I have to say. Sorry.
Yeah, I definitely kind of agree with going. Well, and I'm in kind of the stance of go either way. Either have everything, just be option packages so that people know they need to check for option packages, or have everything as a trim kind of thing, like so that you know what you're getting.
The Bullet should have been more than what it was. Like,
I mean, it was like from what people said, it was fantastic. Like, it made more power.
Yes and no. It had a different tune and all that stuff. But what I mean is, let the Bullet be a PP2. Let the Bullet be a PP1. Make the Bullet the appearance package available on like a PP1 or PP2, and then give the PP2 the extra horsepower bump that it needs.
Give it the big PP.
To try to even keep up with the 1LE, and then there you go.
Dude, that's the other
Bullet
thing too.
PP1 or a Bullet Performance Pack 2.
I hate Mustang, like the Mustang Performance Trim naming scheme, if only just because like it doesn't carry the same weight. Like when you hear 1LE, it like means something, whereas
you know it's track.
Yeah, whereas like when I hear PP1, PP2, like I don't know, it does, because it literally is like performance pack, whatever. And
and also it doesn't help that since pretty much the Camaros come back out, that you basically need the performance pack on the Mustang to equal the the base SS. Like, that's why Chevy just came out with the LT1 version of the Camaro, to be that base Camaro to line up with what the base Mustang GT is. Because whether it was the Challenger with its Dynamics package or the Mustang with the Performance Pack 1, if either of those cars didn't have that option, there was no way they were keeping up with the base SS. But the base SS also cost a couple grand more than them. Well, no shit, it's got wider tires, it's got all the other performance goodies that you don't get on a base Mustang. Like, the base radio on a Mustang is like a 3-inch screen or something silly and ridiculous for a 35 grand car, whereas the base radio on the Camaro SS was, 7 or 8 inch screen, whatever it is.
Can I just say, I love that manufacturers really have like mastered the art of making you feel like a sack of crap if you get the cheapest radio. Like, they have mastered that. If you get the cheap
freaking dial pad next to it,
yeah, like dude, like Ford has mastered it. Dodge it. Like every time I get into any of the pony muscle sport boys that has the base radio, it's like, wow, this looks terrible and feels cheap. And it's like, sometimes I look at it and I go, this couldn't have been any cheaper. Like, because you had to design a bezel with buttons on the keypad. How is that any cheaper than your screen display? Like, I'm sure it does still work out somewhere to be like $1 or $2 less per car, which is cheaper for production. But at the end of the day, it's like Because the other thing too is that it does make it to where nobody wants it. So you could make the argument that it's what pushes people to paying the extra $700 to $1,500 to upgrade. So at the end of the day, it just means that they make more money on every car. But I just still find it hilarious because for all intents and purposes, nobody wants the base radio. The base radio is trash unless you're building a race car. And
yeah, it's pretty much.
And Toyota is actually really bad about it too. Like, I can only speak for the Supra specifically, but I've seen the difference between the base Supra radio and the premium whatever their package thing is. They only have like the 2 trims and the higher trim. Like, again, it's like the difference between having this dinky little built-in screen and actually like a thought out tabby tab. So it's pretty hilarious. I just always find that funny.
So, back to the Mach 1.
Yeah.
Since we went into the weeds with it. This is its first return since, 2003?
There was one in 2003?
It came out, in 69 is when it first came out.
Yeah, I knew about the OG ones are just hotness.
And it came back for 03, 04, or maybe just 03. And it was like more track ready. Like they didn't really have like a performance pack 2 back then, especially. So it just got suspension, brakes, and aero on the 4.6. I can't remember if the engine tune was any different at all. But Mustang's pretty much apparently saying that it's gonna get the Mach 1's gonna get some Shelby bits from the GT350 since that's dying off.
Rest in peace.
So it's going to get some fat Brimbos, a unique front and rear fascias.
Fascias.
Fascists. I wonder if it will get the bullet tune. I kind of doubt it.
Yeah, I would not doubt it, especially once again.
I think you'd have too many upset bullet owners with that. Too many boomer. Bullet owners would be upset.
I mean, that's kind of like, I don't know if they'd necessarily be worried about that, because I mean, it's like, you bought a car, there's always going to be something better that comes out after you bought it.
Yes, it happened with the Supra, but it takes a special kind of boomer to buy the Bullet Mustang. I think Matt Farah said it best.
That's like super boomer.
It's
like, the movie came out in the late 60s?
I will say, though,
early 70s. Like, the movie's old as shit. No current, young folks have any real connection to that movie.
But it's a cool color green, and it has a Target symbol as the logo.
I think, like I said, Matt Farah penned a great article about how it's just a kind of pathetic at this point. Let me try. No one has any connection to it. It's not special. It's not. It's just shitty nostalgia for the boomers.
Yeah, and to be fair, that is basically what it is.
He also apparently doesn't like Bullet. That's what it was. So,
and I'm sure, honestly, sometimes I wonder what kind of relationship Ford has with the studio that owns all the naming rights and copyrights for the Eleanor, because I wonder if they would make one. If they'd ever work out to make something like that again, because
they probably sees it.
Well, because I take it you heard about the B is for build thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sees.
Dude, that is just okay. So it's not on the topic thing, but for any of you guys who know B is for build, most of us know that he's been working on converting, or he was working on converting, a V8 Mustang, so standard Mustang GT, a 2015. Into an Eleanor, and he was actually cutting it up and welding on actual Eleanor / fastback old school Mustang body panels onto this new chassis. And about 70% of the way through the project, because he kept referring to it as Eleanor and a bunch of other stuff, they came after him. And basically the long-standing theory that I support the most is that they played hardball, and they basically said, we can sue you right now if we wanted to, but we're not going to sue you if you stop, remove your videos, and you give us the car. And otherwise, we will sue you with the full might that Hollywood has to offer. And, B is for build, not B. Like, he may be a baller with, the cars that he buys and stuff, but with a lot of those YouTubers, their budget is a lot tighter than most people think it is. Like, yeah, he's buying $100,000 cars, but he probably had $100,000 in the bank to buy it. And then
or he's leveraging his loans on that
or
one.
leveraging loans on stuff. Like, a lot of these guys aren't actually just, like, rich ballers shelling out and burning money for the hell of it. Like, they run it like a business, and businesses very rarely actually have, like, a surplus. It's like you are just coasting between debts, gained equity that you then sink and burn in order to make enough money to have equity to sink and burn again. So, long story short is that I've guaranteed he did not want to fight that legal battle. But it is insane to me that they took the car. Like, I would totally understand if like, what would seem reasonable to me is stop making content on this car. And then, he gets to keep everything, and then he decides what he wants to do, finish it in his own time or whatever, which, then it'll never get done because he's super AD. I was doing a crazy thing. He's not crazy, but he's, like, super ADD with all of his projects and stuff. So, like, if he couldn't make content off of it, it would sit and he'd work on the next project. But it is insane to me that they actually, took a car that he bought and parts that he bought, and they just took all of it. But that's the risk you run when you play around with copyright stuff. It's there, and a lot of these places have just been getting super aggressive. Like, it's the reason why most YouTubers don't even risk playing music anymore. Like, they don't even try. Like, they won't even play 2 seconds of a song.
To me, the Eleanor ones, I get why they have to protect it, but no one fucking knows what it is anymore outside of the replicas. Like, they're the one thing keeping.
Like, how marketable is the Eleanor name anymore? It means nothing to most people. Like,
no.
I only know of it because I know that it has the
Nicolas
crazy
Cage.
front end. Like,
I know it from the replicas that I've seen. That's it.
Yeah.
What if they made a Nicolas Cage Mustang?
What?
I did see one comment I think it was on the Reddit thread that
Eleanor.
the car was more popular than Nicolas Cage in that movie.
Yeah, Nicolas Cage sucks.
Would you take that back? Nicolas Cage is a
No, I'm
god.
I'm not. Brendan Fraser's a god. Nicolas Cage sucks.
I'm sorry, how many times is Brendan Fraser still in the Declaration of Independence?
Look, man.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
This
That's what I
movie's just
thought.
so fucking horrible, and I never watched them.
Then how do you know they're horrible?
What were those movies called again?
National Treasure.
National
And
Treasure.
they are treasures.
Those movies are national treasures.
No, they're not. They're terrible.
All right, Hunter, do you want to take this one? This one's pretty cool.
No, I didn't. Excuse me. That's a horrible time to start coughing.
You don't have to pretend to die, God.
Just trying to get out of it.
Oh yeah, I want to talk about. I'm sorry. Just go on without me.
I just drank some water. Oh, anyway, sorry. No. For real, I get to a little sip and then I don't know what happened.
Oh my god.
So the
Top
Type S
quality
brand-
production shit here.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Our
anyway.
5 listeners are going to be so upset. Sorry, Mom.
You guys are awful.
So the Type S name is coming back to Acura in a TLX Type S, which I'm pretty happy about because I thought all the Type S cars were pretty rad, especially the last
Especially the NSX.
07, 08.
Was it an NSX Type S or was it Type R?
It was.
What?
It was. So the first gen had a Type R in Japan,
Okay, there was a Type S. I'm not crazy.
and there
Okay.
was a Type S. I'm pretty sure as well. Yeah.
Yes, there was.
The Type S
The
came
Type
first.
S Zero.
And then the Type R was the
Oh,
swan
and there was a
song.
Type S regular one too. There was a Type S and a Type S Zero for the original NSX. Sorry, go ahead. Didn't mean to cut you up there, Hunter.
No, you're good. That's pretty much it. I mean, they're bringing back the Type S badge, and I think it looks pretty good.
I mean, you left out the important bits, though.
Which is what?
The turbocharged V6.
Yeah,
whatever.
oh yeah, they made this car. It's whatever. Yeah.
What?
You look at the car that made it
It's
good.
a car. It's basically a Prius, but whatever.
It sucks, and I hate it.
It's a turbocharged 3-liter V6, standard all-wheel drive.
I hope everybody who worked on it dies of ass cancer. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm excited. I mean, yeah.
Well, and the other thing too, the thing that we haven't mentioned yet, it looks like sex. It's got the booty of a quadrifoglio, it's got the sides of a quadrifoglio, and it's got the fronts of an Accord.
And it doesn't have the reliability of Italian trash can.
Yeah, like straight up. This is going to be a fun little performance buy for the money. Like, it's not going to be peak performance, but I think it's... And especially, dude, because of the fact that it's an Acura, once these hit the used market, they are going to be such a performance bargain.
They're going to be tuned like crazy.
Like, dude, like, you think about... This is going to be... I think it was... What is it? A $40,000 or $50,000 car? I think it's a $50,000 car.
Yeah. Something like that in that ballpark.
Yeah, so $50,000. So by the time that it's done with its first owner, it's gonna be like a $40,000 car, which means that you've got for the cost of an STI, it's not gonna be the same mechanical all-wheel drive, and it's also not gonna be a rattling trash can. So if that's what you're into, hi me, then go somewhere else. But that being said, like you said, it's got all-wheel drive. You're going to be able to tune the nuts off of this thing. Well, we'll see how much overhead it actually has, but if it's like, I mean, friggin' the Civic Si alone makes 30 horsepower on a tune. No bolt-ons. Straight up, plug a tune into it, you just gain 30 horsepower. You now have a car that makes, weighs 2,800 pounds and makes 240 horsepower. It's insane. So, and this Type R, same thing. I think it makes like 330 or 350 with a tune alone. So this thing, it starts out making like, was it 400 something horsepower?
The estimate is going to be like 350,
350? Yeah, so you're looking at 400 horsepower on a Honda, because that's the other thing too, is it's like, if you don't go balls to the walls with this thing, then, like, if you just do basic bolt-ons, it's going to be like a solid 100,000, 150,000 mile car with bolt-ons. Like... No problem. Easy peasy. Well, that being said, I will say, actually, I'm still I trust Honda wholly and wholeheartedly, but I will say that, like, them putting turbos on things is still a new thing. So, I mean, the turboed cars are only, like, 5 years old. So, we still will have to see what the next 5 years holds, because they may turn into giant trash piles once they hit 10 years old, for all we know. But... I doubt it, because their testing procedures haven't changed. Like, it's not like they suddenly go, oh, we're only going to test it half as hard, and if it stays okay, we're good. Like, they're going to put things through the same ringer that their naturally aspirated motors went through.
I just want to see them put this, like, in a crossover, because, yes, it's great. I'm happy that they're putting this in a sedan.
Well, I mean, we are getting
where the money's at now.
So one of the articles that I skipped is that they actually are going to be doing they're going to be doing a Type S crossover. So presumably it will be that engine. So it is happening.
I'm not saying to all you viewers out there, but like, oh my god, I'm not advocating that I would like a crossover better. When I take these stances, I'm thinking about it from the brand perspective, like from sitting in the CEO's chair, like, we gotta make money.
Yeah. Like, I mean, like,
selling a hot sedan isn't going to make boatloads of money.
Mm-hmm.
Selling a slightly hot crossover is. It'll make oodles of money.
Well, and especially, it's like, it is a good sign of Acura kind of making an attempt to eat, like, BMW and Mercedes lunch money in that, like, entry-level performance luxury car. Because, like, that's the biggest thing is again, like, we said it out loud, when you talk to a practical person, like a person who's actually kind of smart-ish with their money, they're going to go, I don't want a Mercedes because after 3 years it's going to be a dumpster fire. But you tell them they can get a Honda, that does, like $40,000, like that is as good performance wise as like a $50,000, BMW, they're going to pick the Honda every time. So especially to those, like, your secret millionaires, the ones who drive Foresters and like wear jeans, that this is that kind of car that'll really appeal to being like, a luxury option that won't break the bank and will also not break. Just flat out. That should be Acura's tagline. We break nothing. Not even your bank account.
And at least, I don't know, like Lexus, I feel like Lexus is missing the middle ground right now. And they've got like the 350, but like they got the F line, but even the F line's kind of dated, especially like the GSF.
Yeah, they just don't have that. They don't have that brand image of like a universal performance. It's like everything that they have is either a crazy expensive super performer or just like meh.
Yeah.
And if you're a big fanboy of Lexus, then I'm sorry I insulted your brand, but it's meh.
I'm insulted.
Yeah, get tilted. Get tilted, son.
BRB.
Of course. So, that being said, I was about to say that has nothing to do with Lexus, but kind of just talking more back to some legacy stuff.
Here's a segue that doesn't work.
Yeah. So Nissan is, and this is all gonna these two things are gonna kind of tie hand in hand. So Nissan has they are working on their official kind of comeback plan because obviously they've been hit just as hard, if not harder, than other manufacturers, and they weren't doing too hot before all of this Corona stuff happened. Haha! See, there's the Corona stuff. Told you it was coming. So
it has to do with our next group of stuff we're talking about anyway, so
yeah. But yeah, so Nissan has this kind of comeback plan that they're hoping / hinging on, and for those of you guys who are hardcore Nissan fanboys, you can, and we've all known about this, so let's face it, if you're a hardcore Nissan fanboy, you already knew about this, but they heavily emphasized about the new Z car, and we got to see a silhouette. Now, that being said, it's a silhouette, which means chances are it's gonna change. It's still gonna change a lot from what that silhouette is, but they do seem like they just kind of did the shadow thing of like their whole lineup coming up, and in the video that they have this like moment where all the names like fall onto each other, like if you took like a stack of cookies and started dropping them on top of each other one by one, it's like that but with the names.
Yeah.
And it's like, Pathfinder, and then at the very end it goes Z, and it's a big old Z that fades to black. I don't actually remember if it fades to black, but that's the sensation that you get. So they're very much like, at this point they've committed, so we know that for a fact they're not going to back out of it. They're going to make it for at least some period of time. And I will say that, from what little we've seen of that silhouette, it looks like it's going to be sexy. Although, I will say, I don't think it's going to be as striking as the last gen, because I still think that one of the biggest things about last gen was just how, like, bulbous it was in different ways, like, and not in a bad way. It's got these just bootylicious hips, like, from the factory.
The outside shape isn't bad.
Yeah, like, and it is such a distinctive look, like, other than in pitch blackness, like, if you can see the color of the car, you can recognize a 370Z from like a mile away. Like, it is a really distinctive look. Whereas this silhouette is a little more kind of laid back. But we'll see, because who knows? It might look nothing like that, when it actually comes out. Or when we actually can see it, it might be more accentuated. But it seems to kind of, like, I don't know. But on the upside, it'll be a new Z car, finally. After 12 years? Yeah, 12 years. No, wait.
36 years, I think?
It's not 12 years, but...
40 years?
18 million, 32?
I think an Eon, at least.
Yeah, at least an Eon. Like, seriously, when did the... No, it
came old enough to be able to drive.
It came out in 2008 or 2009, I think.
Yeah, came out in 2009.
Yeah.
It's just an evolution of the FM platform. I believe a little shortened from the 350Z, but
Yeah, it is
everything
shorter.
that pretty much everything that Nissan and Infiniti are still using um, is still in some version of that. You got the 370Z, the G35. So initially it was a 350Z, G35, SX, FX35, several others that weren't in the States, and then now pretty much that's what underpins Infinity's lineup. So the assumption is the new one, and I'm not saying that they share platforms to bash them or whatever. I'm not saying the platforms haven't changed. I don't want that to be taken away. I'm just saying that when people look to what the new Z might be, they're looking back at what Infinity's doing with that platform right now. So what the Q60 has and what the Q50 has, engine-wise and whatnot, those are things we might see come to the new Z.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to it though, because I've always liked the Z cars, and genuinely, no joke, it is actually on my like top 10 next car list. Like, you know, the SRT
I thought you
Charger.
had a good top 20 next car list because I get like it changes every other day.
Hey, shut
Yeah,
up.
I was gonna say, does
No,
it change like all the time?
basically.
Yeah.
But that being said, though, it consistently does pop up onto the list of things that actually do kind of interest me. Because I like weird things, and it's a weird thing. Like, it is. Short and simple. It is a unique car. And also, I always make the joke, but, like, genuinely, I have the habit of that I buy the car that most stereotypically does a motorsport, and then I just mod the shit out of it until it's unique. A la my WRX Rally. No shizbit. I don't even know if I said a curse earlier. So we'll see if I did. Oh well. But yeah, and then this S2000's dime a dozen in the time attack world because it's a chassis that can take whatever you throw at it. So it would make sense that if I bought a 370Z, I'd start drifting it. That's their whole thing. So
Yeah.
time will tell. Although I would really rather start with a 350 that's just like a junk pile because like drift is,
Those
you
are
know,
dime a dozen.
I make mistakes in rallycross and in track and autocross stuff all the time. In drift, that means you hit a wall consistently.
Yeah, it means that's all you do. Just bounce off a wall.
Just ping pong. That being said, to be fair, most of the time it means you spin out, but you do hit stuff, and I would rather not care about how it looked, which the 370Z is a way prettier car than the 350Z. So the 370Z would make me the sad if I uglified it. So, let's see. All right, so cool. So now we're going back into some more Corona news. So we talked about McLaren's struggles in the last episode, but like we just talked about the potentially mortgage. Or no, did we even talk about them mortgaging their cars? No, we skipped it. So I just wanted to bring it up this time around because they actually officially had a huge wave of layoffs. Like they laid off over 1,200 people, which they're a company of like 3,000 something people. So they basically laid off a third of their workforce. And I thought that a lot of that was going to be from like their racing teams and their racing divisions, but I found out it's like 70 people are from their F1 division.
Yeah,
So
not many.
yeah, so it's like flat out that means that they also just laid off a lot of assembly line workers and a lot of Joe Schmoes and a lot of secretaries and, you know, other things like that. Because originally I was hoping that it was just like a big F1 layoff because they were like, hey guys, we got a budget cap, so meep, sorry. Which, by the way, is still shucky. It's shucky, no matter how you slice it. Because it's like, you know, you worked really hard, you finally work for an F1 team, and then you get laid off, and then it's like, where do you go? Because everybody else has a budget too. Like, all of these F1 teams were already booked. They already had all their people squared away.
Yep.
So, I haven't seen articles about the other companies doing it, but I would not be surprised if like every F1 team has laid off like 10 or 20% of their people to save on budget.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. And I'm sure it's going to happen soon enough.
Like Formula 1 is just one of those like
But at the same time, it's just like, look how much money you guys spent, and then like there's no new manufacturers want to come in, no new teams that want to come in.
Yeah, I really do hope that this does actually. I really do hope that this actually brings in some new blood into F1 because it would be. How many teams are there? 12, or is it 20 something?
10.
10. Is it really just 10?
Yeah, 10 teams with 2 cars.
It's not a huge field.
Yeah. So it's like it would be real because the other thing too is that there's so many like up and coming racers that like we would have a way more diversified field in F1 if like if there was like even just like 3 or 4 more teams. It means you have that many more upstarts slipping up from Formula 2 into Formula 1 and shaking things up and giving a challenge to, because that's the other thing too that's always so funky is that in Formula 1 you pretty much never have like any rookie on rookie action. It's always like the one new kid in a field of a bunch of guys who've been doing it for years.
It's just so
like there's no such thing as a rookie champ, like a rookie anything in F1 because they never have more than one at a time.
I feel like, I have not been following. I'll preface this: I have not been following F1 as closely the past like year or two as I have previously. But it feels like whenever I go back and look at F1 right now, it's the same people winning the races.
Yep, it's the same people driving in every race too.
Yeah. I feel like there hasn't been a lot of good like turnover, a lot of rookies coming up into F1.
But I think that's a problem with just racing in general. I think just the money is just too stupid these days. Like
Dude, especially
NASCAR at least has a few more up and comers coming into it. Formula 1's just absurdly expensive.
Yeah,
unless you're paying to drive, pretty much, or you're bringing your own sponsors.
Yeah, dude. Like it's even just listening to like the cost of because the thing like especially with like Formula 1, you don't just like get into it. Like you pretty much have to work your way up and accumulate sponsors over time. And basically at the Formula 4 level, it's like all self-funded and a lot of small sponsors. Like, and it's expensive. Like Formula 4, it's mind-bendingly expensive. And most of those teams, the majority of the funding is like their parents.
Yep.
Short and simple. That's what it comes down to.
It's thanks Dad Racing. That's all it is.
God, and there's just. I wonder, Hunter, off the top of your head, do you know how much a Formula 4 car costs? Like, not upkeep, just the base price.
Like a program?
No, just a car. Just the car.
Oh, I don't know. I'm car ready to hit the track. Wouldn't surprise me if that's 6 figures.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me either. Like, they're just... but they're so cool. I got to hang around a Formula 4 car last weekend. And it's just, it really is like a little baby F1 car. It's so cool.
Yeah, so...
I would love to give one of those a shot.
Like, yeah, I would...
I don't think I could fit my leg in one.
What'd you say?
I don't think I could fit my leg in one.
Maybe my issue is
it's funny that you say that, but, like, genuinely, that is another kind of issue with Formula 4, is, like, by the time people are old enough to like have money in a job that could fund it, like Formula 4 cars are really kind of designed with teenagers in mind.
Yeah, that's exactly what drives them.
Yeah, it's like it's a field full of teenagers because it's all the teenagers who have been karting for like 4 or 5 years, who had enough thanks mom, thanks dad, or lucky sponsorship stuff to get into F4 that they want to desperately fight to get into F3 so they can desperately fight to get into F2 so they can desperately reach the big dogs. Anywho, long story short is F1 is like the pinnacle of the problem that exists in racing today, which is just that the cost of entry is just bonkers. Like, it is to the point in my region, there are people in my region who genuinely will, like, not for Formula 1, this is just for SCCA racing, but there are people in my region who will either rent their cars out, or even the guy who used to be our regional executive, he's a big... He straight up made a Facebook post that made me think for a little bit, that he basically said, I will give you this car for the racing season, like, no rental fee, no nothing. You will have the car if you race it. Like, if you take this car and go racing, you can have it free of charge. And I will help you fix it, and I will help you maintain it, and I will help you pay for it. And you just have to be willing to put in the time and the supporting money. So, like, that's the thing, is you still would need, a truck and a trailer, and you'd need to pay for tires and a bunch of other stuff. Yep. But it was a logbook, ready to race car. And I was super close, but it's just like, when I ran the numbers, for me to even do one event would be probably, I think, altogether, I worked out it would be like maybe $5,000 to $7,000 for me to run one event. And that's cheap. Like, in the world of racing, that is like freaking pennies. And I think at the that is one way that it would be the cheapest possible, is like with the people in my region just like giving cars away for the sake of just seeing the sport survive. Then the next step up from that is like the chump car, which, people always talk about, oh, it's $500 cars. Yeah, it's $500 car, and it's a $5,000 roll cage, because you have to put a roll cage into it. It's $2,000 in safety gear, like a helmet, a Hans.
Yeah, I looked at fire suits. They are not cheap.
Yeah, the cheapest fire suit is like $1,200 that I've been able to find that I would trust, and that's what?
I'm gonna say there should be more. There should be more than that. Or
do you say they should be more or cheaper?
No, they should be cheaper, is what I'm saying.
There may be. I might have just been being persnickety and looking at ones that I wanted more than ones that I could afford.
Fair enough.
But so it's like, it's a $500 base car that you then put another $6,000 or $7,000 into.
I was looking at lemons so hard, and it was just the safety gear more than anything is their limiting factor for me.
Yep. So racing is just straight up like, it's the kind of thing that, now that the middle class is dissolved, hooray, Afro soapbox time. Now that the middle class is dissolved, there are just not people with large amounts of expenditure. Like, basically, most of us are lucky enough to buy a shiny technology bauble once a year. Like, that's where a lot of people are now. Like, they can upgrade their smartphone or their laptop, or they can do everything, and that is all their excessive spending for the year. The rest of it is food, gas, fixing the car, paying an unexpected bill, paying unexpected medical stuff. There are very few people who are just sitting on like $10,000 in savings, or they have an extra $1,000 at the end of every month that they just burn on booze that they could convert into race car money if they wanted to.
I resemble that remark.
Yeah, it'll cost me $500 a night to run a dirt modified.
Yeah.
By the time you're paying gas, tires, all that
that's how much for me to show up with helmet in hand.
Yeah, so it's just little things like that. But we are not a generation of future race car drivers. We are a generation of race car lovers, but the only people who can afford it are the people who came before us. So that being said, like, I mean, luckily there are enough people who have thanks mom, thanks dad racing that racing isn't going anywhere. We'll always have stuff to watch. But at the end of the day, like, grassroots is always in trouble. And, luckily there are things, there are the smaller things which, kind of step people up. Like, for instance, a really, really well-built autocross car is the first steps to a really good track car. And a really good track car is the first steps to a caged car, which is then a race car, etc., etc. So you do have some people who, like, over the course of, like, 10 years build up. I mean, like, hell, this car was, stock 2 years ago, and I've had it for almost 5 years. And the goal is by the end of this year for it to be, track ready, and even then it's not going to be competitive. I still need to do wing, splitter, and all sorts of other stuff. And so it's just like, people nickel and dime their way up to where they need to be, but it's just really hard to dive into. Now, that being said, I will also say that people who are smarter than me that make the money that I make would be way better off. Like, if I didn't have the $1,000 a month worth of debt that I have, I could, then I'd be able to throw $1,000 at this car a month easy. Just roll with it. But even then, on paper, if it costs $6,000 a weekend to race, I could do 2 races with my excess $1,000 a month. 2 races a year.
Rip. Hope you have fun. Make the most of them.
Now that being said, also though, it gets cheaper as you do more things because if you win, you get sponsorship money stuff, and then also like once the car is built, your upkeep costs go down a lot. Because then you just break. If you have a good car, then you just break small things constantly. Like I do not envy the spec Miata guys because spec Miata you have to have the factory brake calipers, and if you have an NA Miata, the factory brakes literally can seize up after like a race. Like literally, like by the end of your race, your brakes won't work right, and you're replacing calipers and rebuilding calipers after every race. And even if they worked until the end of the race, like all the guys I talked to, they're like, yeah, pretty much every race you're rebuilding calipers. That's just how it goes.
Oh, lame.
Yeah, like it's one of those like insane things to think about. Is like the Miata is a really cheap and easy way to get in and be competitive, but there's tons of just limitations to every kind of car out there because it's like in order to get into cars that are going to be bulletproof for a season of racing, you're going to be spending so much money and competing at such a high level that it's not it then goes the opposite way. It's like, oh, this makes a lot of sense because you spend money once and then you're good for the rest of the season. But then you suddenly have to be racing at a level that is equivalent to that. Otherwise, it's not worth it. And you should have been, using a cheaper car where you could be competitive, so you could actually, continue the process. So, yay, we tangented onto race car stuff, and you guys didn't get the full tangent of my whole spiel about the collapsing middle class. You just got the snippet of it today. The snippy snip.
How did we get here?
That's for our other podcast.
Yeah, our We're Broke and Want to Go Fast podcast.
We need to start a separate podcast for racing and iRacing.
Basically, at this point. I mean, half the time we should just that honestly would probably all just be a special someday. It's just talking about race car stuff. So, just because we're on the topic of race car stuff, I'm going to skip a few things. Like, we're going to come back to them. But we're going to jump down to, we were talking about Formula 1 before. Yay! So, the Formula 1 schedule for the year has officially been announced. So, haha, Hunter, they are going racing. There's 6 races on the schedule.
I'm honestly, I'm surprised.
8 for now, but they said more will be announced in the coming weeks.
Yeah. So they're cramming them in between now and I think the last race is in September. So they're really just
that's of the ones announced. They're on back-to-back weekends in Austria, then back-to-back weekends in Great Britain to kind of help speed things up. I mean, they're all in Europe, so it's easier for them to
just scoot along
and to get places, obviously.
Yep.
I'm just excited.
It's what NASCAR's doing right now with Bristol and Charlotte and Darlington. They're all close tracks to the main hub of
anything with the day's drive or whatever.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Well, either way, I'm excited because I love F1 because the drama is hilarious and it's fantastic. I need to put in the time to make sure that I watch because I watched it in pieces last year and I had a lot of fun, but I missed out on a lot of the meme material. And I want to keep up with the meme material so I can meme with the best of them.
Gotta get those hot memes, bro.
Oh yeah, especially because there's a guy on Instagram. Well, he's on a bunch of stuff, but his comic series is called the Circus, but it's the circus. And he just makes a bunch of really cute cartoons, and they're all F1 inside jokes, and I get every third one, but the rest of them I'm oh, I don't know F1 enough to get this. It's kind of like the XKCD of F1 comics, where it's just either you get it or you don't.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have anything to do with how smart you are. It just matters about how exposed you are to enough things to pick it all up. So, anything about Kimmy I get, because I know a lot about him, but there's none of those, because, who is Raikkonen driving with anyone right now?
Yeah, Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Because I didn't hear his name a lot unless it's in, I don't know, I just feel like people didn't talk about him a bunch.
No, not as much, because he's not in Ferrari, so. So that's what it is.
It is, it's true. It's like once you scoot down to but isn't Alfa Romeo like baby Ferrari?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But but Alfa Romeo is still not best of the rest though.
No.
Or, I mean, they are best of the rest. They're not the best.
No, they are.
They're not even best of the rest.
No.
What's wrong with? Does Ferrari just like give them the hand-me-down crud?
Pretty much.
Yeah. Yep.
That's mean. At least the Red Bull teams are pretty like Red Bull is like Red Bull.
That's mean.
Yeah, it is mean.
Poor little Alfa Romeo.
Like, they're both basically the same company. Like they Ferrari could have 4 cars on the podium. Well, not 4 because only 3 people can be up there. But you get this. Like you could have all 4 cars be up there if they like weren't just like beating down their slower team. Like what is Alfa Romeo then? Are they just like a freaking roadblock for the best of the rest? Like they're just supposed to crash into everybody else so that nobody gets up front?
Basically.
Yeah.
Well, that is so why did Kimi go from Ferrari to Alfa? Like was Ferrari unhappy or was Kimi unhappy because he's still with?
They wanted to put Leclerc into Ferrari.
So they just demoted him.
Yep.
God, that's like one of the most stressful things. It's like when you're with one of the big teams, they can just be like, "We're gonna go with this guy now," and it's like, "But
the guy's got his chance. He's been in F1 for like 20 fucking years.
Yeah.
This is true.
It is time.
It's time to pack it in, brother.
Yeah. But yeah, so anyway, but the Formula 1 will be starting up, so we'll get to see all the drama and all the other fun stuff, because I've been dying to see the Mercedes, steering wheel thing in action. I've wanted to see just how, although, like, the worst thing is like, it's on the car that was already fastest, so it's like, he's just gonna keep winning. So we won't really get to see a hard comparison, which is kind of a little disappointing, but whatever. And Hunter, do you know, is it just on Hamilton's car, or did they do it to both of their cars?
No, both cars will have it.
Okay, that's what I thought, because all the footage has been Hamilton, but I know that's because, like, Hamilton's their go-to testy boy.
Yeah, I'd say that's true.
So, I guess, going down the list, though, to keep on talking, we're still talking about F1 here. Williams, because of the fact that, like, it hasn't been their last, like, 2 or 3 years, and this year has been all the same, it looks like they're potentially considering partial or full sale of the company, which is actually really sad, because, like, they, if you've watched, Drive to Survive or any other stuff, like, that Williams is a family-owned company, and they've been trying to keep it family-owned. So, like, the fact that they're having to sell is kind of that, like, really, really sad, like, Hollywood story where it's like, this was my daddy's store. I can't afford to keep it running.
I can't run for my daddy. Well, yeah, because to be winning at the top in F1, it's $500 million now.
Yeah. And on top of that, like...
That's why there's a budget cap coming.
Dude, every time they do a segment about Williams or Haas, I get really, really sad, because... Like, every time I'm just like, they're so desperately trying, and they're not getting a lot of result for it.
No.
Like, and it's just, because, other people are trying just as hard, and they're doing just fine. But these teams are consistently not finding the pace that they need. And then, I forget, was it the Haas driver who what's his name? God, it's a really weird name, and he has a huge issue with, like, not finishing races.
Roman Grosjean?
Thank you, Grosjean. Is he still there, or did he get canned?
Yeah, he's still there. They got re-signed again.
I've got to hop off real quick, guys. Y'all good luck with the rest of the show.
Godspeed, friend.
Peace out.
Alright, now let's talk bad about him while he's gone.
Deuces.
But yeah, so with I know that they had, that's the hardest thing, is it's like, at the end of the day, that's the other hard thing, is it's like, it's so easy to judge in F1 and be like, oh, this guy must suck, because, any driver should be able to do anything, but, like, sometimes cars just really aren't well sorted, like, despite all of the money they spend on these cars, like, it doesn't mean that it's going to be balanced right. Just short and simple. Like,
Nope. Yep.
some parts behave better than others. Some engineering attempts are more reliable than others. Because that's the one thing that I love the most about F1 is it is one of the few sports where you genuinely have, like, a team that built everything short of, like, a handful of things from the ground up themselves. Like, it's like the engines. I think it's just the engines that get sourced. I think most of them build their own transmissions, right?
Yeah, there's only 4 engine manufacturers. It depends on who transmission though. Depends on the team. I think there's some people sharing stuff. I can't remember though.
But at the end of the day, though, it's just like there is so much like stuff that like every car really like. That's one of the hardest things about racing series that have like heavy regulations. Is that, like, eventually you end up, it's like, oh, all these cars are exactly the same. They all look exactly the same. But they are, like, literally they started completely differently. Like, the first CAD drawing on one is completely different than the other one. All the measurements are slightly different. One is a millimeter wider or a millimeter narrower. This one has 2 cooling ducts instead of one big one. Like, it's all those finer details that make them different. And I still remember, like, I started out as one of those people who was like, they're exactly the same. But now that I've gotten into it, like, I notice all these little different details. Like, it's like, their air scoopy is taller. They have a weird shape there. Like, that car really does look significantly different than the other car. And it's because everything is just so ground up that, like, again, it means that some companies build good cars and some companies build cars that look like proper race cars, but, like, the driver would probably swear that, like, a cheap GT3 car handled better. Now, that being said, I'm sure it's never that bad, but, sometimes you really do have good drivers who aren't in a good car, but it's really hard to tell, especially when you consistently have a partnership between a driver and like a company that notoriously doesn't make the best cars, because like that guy may actually be like pole position Ferrari driver level, but he's with the only company that'll bring him on, which is a company that's making cars that he can't drive stably or that he's gonna crash because he has no confidence in them. Did I lose you? Nope, you still there. Cool.
Yeah. No, sorry. For some reason, my microphone muted. My bad.
Yeah. Nah, you're good. But yeah, because
you hit all the right points. So
yeah. Well, and the other thing too is, as somebody who has who will never be a super fast race car driver because my whole brain works right. Confidence in a car is so much, and it takes so little for a car to make you feel like you can't trust it doing something. So little before you're just like, I can't push this car. If I push it, it will behave weird, and if it behaves weird, I can't guarantee I will save it. Versus then there's other cars where you, I still remember when I drove my WRX for the first time in 3 or 4 months, after, months of driving this thing, it is I just beat the hell out of my WRX because, I was like, holy crap, I can just dive in and it doesn't want to step out, it doesn't want to do weird twitchy stuff. Just when a car feels right, you want to beat the crap out of it, and you trust it because it just does everything you want it to. This car, the AP1s are notoriously twitchy. Mine had blown suspension in the rear, which I found out, well on later through my 4 months of driving when it started to knock really bad. So hopefully the coilovers are going to change. What'd you say?
Said it's like a go-kart.
Yeah, basically like a go-kart. So I'm hoping though that the Öhlins coilovers that I have for this car transform the way it feels, and I have all the confidence in the world that this car is going to find all sorts of great, because the old factory suspension had 200,000 miles on it, so it was worn out. This car will be more on par with how confident I felt. But then there's other things that you feel like the steering and the feel in this car. I know a lot about what this car is going to do right before it does it. And, when you know how to drive this thing right, it is a precision weapon compared to the WRX.
Yeah.
It's so, confidence in a car is everything. and confidence comes from the car just feeling right. And it is so hard to make a car feel right because everybody is different and every designer is different, and sometimes you just don't know where to go because, like, you know, you say the rear end is loose. Is it tire pressure? Is it the sway bars? Is it the suspension settings? Is it the fact that the back end of the chassis is too loose? Is your wing angle too aggressive? So maybe it's causing some sort of weird issue with the rest of the airflow over the car. There's like hundreds of things that a car feeling unstable could be, and that is why F1 has hundreds of engineers per team. Like, it's not like 5 dudes designing the car. It's hundreds of dudes. You've got the suspension team, you've got the aero team, you've got the whatever team, and they're all trying to do their job to try to make the car make sense. And it's just this crazy balancing act of changing the right number of things to not screw up everything else. And that's why race cars are hard.
That's why, yeah, that is, I was gonna say, it's like, that's why it's hard.
Because there's no such thing as there. Honestly, I'm very much in the camp that there is no such thing as a good race car. There is just a good race car and driver pairing, because everybody has different feels, everyone has different preferences, everyone has different confidence levels, and every race car has flaws that can be worked out that they'll never find because their driver doesn't notice the problem with it. Short and simple. Yeah. Until you get it. And that's the reason why these companies get new drivers sometimes, is sometimes you get different input. The car changes to meet their needs, and you're like, holy crap, we did what he wanted, and now the car is a second faster than last year's car. This is great. This car should have been this fast all along. And then you may go and slap the old driver right back into it, and he'll be slower than he was because he just doesn't get the feel for the car the way it's set up.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
So,
I mean, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna move on to the next thing, but I'm gonna let you finish what you wanted to say now, since you have more to say.
That's pretty much it. I mean, it's just it's like clothes.
Yeah, it is like clothes. There isn't like every once in a while you find that shirt or that pair of pants where you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna buy everything they make because this is me. Yeah. And then the rest of the time it's too tight around your nipples, or your shoulders are too wide so it stretches when you flex. The pants just somehow pinch your balls every now and again. The material isn't right. Yeah, it's exactly like clothes. F1 cars are just clothing. If anything, F1 drivers should drive naked. It'll give them a better sense in the car.
They should do it. It'd make it more challenging.
It would. If anything, there should be like a brake booster that they can clench with their butt cheeks, so based upon like how scared they get, they brake more aggressively. So you can really, really like panic brake, like you're like, ooh. Because we all know you more instinctively clutch your butt cheeks than press your brake pedal down. Your foot might be a little slow, but your butt knows what you need. Anywho, now we're going to get on to something I'm going to let you take. We are going to keep going down the list, and then we're going to bop back up. This one should be a little bit more near and dear to you, Hunter.
Oh, about Daniel Abt? Because I totally lost where we're at right now.
Yeah, it's the last one on the list.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I got fired. There is a Formula E driver that got fired for having somebody sit in for him during a Formula E sim race event, and it caused him to get fired. Which everybody's like, it's so stupid. But
it's just like, is this for real? Like, did this really happen?
Dumb. Well, I think Audi just wanted to fire him anyway. They got an excuse. Like, there's no other reason to it. It's just like, sim racing, like this sim racing circle jerk. It's just, no, Audi wanted him gone. They're tired of giving him a paycheck for some reason or another. Like, that's it. There's no other rhyme or reason. Like, come on.
Well, and it's just like, well, one thing I still love, because, like, his justification was that, like, he was trying to make a statement. Like, he was gonna be, like, apparently at the end of the series, he says he was gonna, like, reveal it and be like, I bet you thought it was me racing all this time, but it wasn't.
Whoa,
It was this guy. But, like, what kind of message, even if he really was honestly making that message, do you all know what that message tells me? If I was an Audi, like, exec, that tells me that I should just hire the sim racer guy and fire you, because he did all the work for this season, and apparently he's a good driver, so let's put him in a car.
Exactly. So, I don't know. I don't get it. The thing I want to know is, like, why didn't he just ask? Like, why not ask if you could do this?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Hey, can we, like, I mean, it would have been a cool publicity stunt if he had, gone through that process. I honestly don't think it was that. I think he really was like, I don't want to do this. I got into the field to race real cars. This is bullcrap. I'm just going to pay this loser to do it for me. And then I think he was just covering his butthole after that.
Yeah, pretty much.
But hey, you know what?
Pretty much.
Believe the story that you want. But it's just hilarious. Like, we now are at 3 drivers, like professional drivers, that have ruined their career with sim racing.
Yeah, but Larson's... Well, who the other... Bubba Wallace never really this career. He just lost a sponsor.
Oh, I thought they lost...
No, he didn't lose his ride. He just lost a sponsor.
Oh, okay. I thought that he lost his, like, big main sponsors in his ride.
No. But what happened to Larson, I don't think really has anything to do with sim racing. It's just, you say the one word you don't say.
Yeah, you don't want to become the N-word guy.
Like, that's...
He's the N-word guy now.
Barring the horrible history behind that word, there's just one word you don't say, and I don't care. Like, somebody's like, well, he didn't know it was a hot mic. I'm like, that's not the fucking point.
Yeah, it's
like,
not.
The point is that if you're representing the highest level stock car racing, if you're representing a multinational fast food chain, if you're representing a multinational automotive company, if you're representing a bank, and it slips out that the person you're giving money to drive cars in a fucking circle said the N-word, and you're keeping them on board, I don't think that's going to be a good fun time for your PR side of your company. So yeah, you're going to tell them it's him or us to Chip Ganassi, and Chip Ganassi is going to fire the fucking guy.
Dude, if I had a big time sponsor, I'd be worried about what I say in bed with my girlfriend, let alone what I say in a public race.
I'd be worried how I drive my car somewhere.
Dude, that's actually one thing that's been real. Like, it hasn't consumed me totally yet, and for the most part, like, I'm not that terrible, but every now and again, like, I think about, like, because we all mess up sometimes. I'd say even the best of drivers accidentally, cut somebody off once or twice a year because you're just in the wrong headspace, or it's that annoying situation where they were transitioning into the lane as you were, so you didn't see them in the mirror when you moved over. Just stuff like that happens. And now I'm, like, worried about that partially because, like, my companies are on these cars now. And so it's, like, potentially bad representation for my stuff.
Oh my god, I've noticed so many people with, like, fuckheads roofing company on the side of their truck, and they just drive like assholes, and I'm like, I might not have an MBA from Harvard, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it's a bad business decision to drive like a fuckhead with your company's name plastered all over it.
It's honestly kind of why I still keep thinking about, like, what my next daily thing is gonna be, because, like, these cars are steadily getting suckier and suckier to drive, both, like, emotionally, reputationally, comfort-wise. Like, as they evolve, they're becoming harder to enjoy on the street. Like, the WRX, the clutch sucks. I love the clutch when you're going fast, and when you're going slow, it's terrible. Just straight up, I kill my car once a week now. Like, guaranteed. Just even pulling out of my frickin' driveway, I kill it constantly, because it's just so aggressive now. Like I said, I've got all the logos and stuff on it now, so there's always that little, like, luckily, my sponsor, Ecotech, they don't care. They think it's hilarious. I have no idea how TrackWorks feels, but I don't feel like me dicking around necessarily has a big impact. But at the same time, I'm also not like a total butthole. It's like I pass people. That's what I do.
Yeah, that's whatever, fine.
Yeah.
But it's just like
I'm not out there freaking doing donuts in an intersection while people
like
are honking at me.
people off, or just being like, I had my old boss was like that, and he picked me up for work one day in the car, and like just driving like this total asshole, and I'm just like, I'm in the passenger seat cringing because the company's name is plastered on this fucking car, and I'm just like, Jesus Christ, like you could tell from a mile away what this company was, what its company's, the name of its company was. I'm just, dude, come on, like, why are you driving like this? It's not a fuck. Anyway,
dude, some people really do, like, because that's the other thing too is like some of the best drivers are really self-conscious about like how they're driving, and so when they do like a kind of like, you know, jerkhole move, you know, they feel bad about it. Like I know I feel bad every time I drop a gear and pass someone on the right because it makes me look like a douche. But when you're doing 7 over and I want to do 15 over because I know that there's no cops on this highway,
no, it's warranted if you're trying to get around somebody that's like just cruising on the left lane, it's warranted. But like just being an asshole on like surface streets, like there's no fucking point.
Yeah. But anyway, but it was just kind of that one of those things though, like I think about, like I said, how I drive on the street now. Like there's a lot of stuff that I still will consciously like talk myself out of doing just because it's like, you know what, I don't need to be out there doing that. But versus like if I got my hypothetical Dodge Charger, I blend in with half of the homies out here, half of the cops out. Especially like I actually really want to get a white Charger, not because of the cop thing. I just think it looks best in white.
Yep.
Like it looks like a freaking stormtrooper in white. It is just such a good car in white. So it's like I'll do whatever. Like I 100% non-sarcastically, and some of you guys are going to hate me, and who knows, maybe some of you guys are never going to listen to the podcast again because you think I'm a jerkhole for this, but if I had a Charger that I daily drove around, I would just do stoplight burnouts all the time. Like, well, eventually I would go, okay, tires are expensive, I should stop this. But
that's
like,
horrible. Why would you do that?
because it's they're just, dude, the first time I drove a Challenger, like a modern Challenger, it just blows my mind at how effortlessly they do it. Like how effortlessly they light up the tires. Like I wasn't even, this was in an automatic. I was at a stoplight and I was like, okay, let me get going, and it's like, okay, there's a clear spot, I'm gonna jump on it. I gave it like slightly more than quarter throttle and it was, and I got off and then got back on. But it's just like, this is stupid. I love this. Like, you could just constantly mat your foot down and just get the tires to spin constantly. And it's just like the fun little things that you can do without actually endangering anybody. Because you're going 5 miles an hour blowing smoke.
Yeah.
You just annoy a lot of people. And you look like a giant tool. It'd be even better if I rolled down the windows and just shouted yeehaw every time I did it, because then people would, like, when they actually pull up next to me, it's like, what the hell?
Paul Walker put the bomb in Tower 7, and then just speed away.
So anywho, yeah, that's all the silliness with that. So all right, so we're gonna bip on back a little bit.
Let's yeah.
So we're back to the lower parts of the Corona bit, and actually I'm not sure how long we've been in here now. We might be at the hour and a half mark.
We're at the hour and a half mark.
We're at the hour and a half mark. All right. So then, that being said, honestly, the rest of these, the only real things worth mentioning, the Ford Bronco is coming out pretty.
Ford's making a square car, and Land Rover's making a square car.
Yeah.
There you go.
And then Hertz is going, or not, they're going out, but they're filing Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which is the one. Did we already talk about that? Oh, but
we did last time.
We did talk about it last time. I think the main reason why I brought it up here. No, we talked about them potentially, but they actually did it between this podcast and last podcast. So we said they were going to, and they have. But the other thing too was just kind of interesting is one thing I honestly didn't think about is how much that affects a lot of car companies' fleet sales. Because God, my default browser is not set right on this tabby tab, so it's trying to open in the stupid thing. But anyway, but it was like GM was like 21% of their car sales. So like GM is going to be super hit by them not buying cars for a little while, or not buying nearly as many cars. But
yeah,
you know, it just goes to show that, like, even on top of that, the fact that they're not raising the price on the C8 is a class act.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah,
Totally agree.
So that being said, we're gonna go ahead and tighten things up here. So I'm glad that I was worried that we were actually not gonna have a lot to talk about, but we and mostly me managed to tangent all over the place.
Mostly your tangents.
It was mostly my tangents. Did you enjoy riding along on my tangents?
I did. It was fun.
Yeah. So
we need to curtail them a little bit, but yes.
Or we just let them go. We just have a whole podcast that's one tangent.
Well, you should just do the Bill Burr podcast, like way Bill Burr does it, just him, and then just talk about cars. Because the man can talk for like 2 hours about nothing. So.
Yeah, I got it from my mom. My mom was terrible. Anywho, we're gonna end this thing. So that being said, as always, huge thank you to you guys who are regular listeners. Contest still, or not really a contest so much as just a social experiment. But if any one of you guys shoot me an email at juan@thecolumnshifters.com, shoot me an email that says spicy tacos, and I will send you $10 worth of coupon to your favorite food establishment. So, as always, you know, do that thing. And when we do, we'll know we actually have listeners who are listening. I'm trying to think if there's any other things really worth mentioning, but no. So, as always, peace out, you guys. We'll see you in a couple of weeks, and hopefully my goal is actually within the next month or two, we're going to actually have our first special podcast. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for that, where we're actually going to have, you know, not a newsy-based one, but kind of more of a story-based one that we're going to have some fun with. So, talk to you guys later. Peace out, Hunter. Say bye.
Bye, Hunter.